titles, and there's pages of the after titles. I thought about talking about the season of the storm. And then as I thought that through, I realized it was after that the storm came. And then as I thought that through and thinking about the story, then the storm came. And as I thought that through, then I discovered that there is a thunder in silence. And in that thunder of silence, when I stopped shaking, I heard and felt the breath of God. And the breath of God began to do something I had not heard about before. And so it was a scary place until I kind of discovered people that he was telling them the same thing. But it's been this process, and in this process, there's been a lot of upheaval. Some big oak trees that had been there a very long time were very uprooted, and they fell on my house. And I wasn't sure I had enough insurance. And then I discovered that I wasn't the only one. And so as I began to read, I read that there were some others gathered together in a room one day. And they, like me, had been on this journey. They heard this man give them this invitation to come and follow him. And it says, they often reminded him, we've left everything to follow you. And they went through this process like me of, wow, did you see what he has the ability to do? Wow. And did you hear what he's promising? And then I began to kind of experience those things. And then like Carlos was talking about, I had those heavenly moments that I was just there. And I thought, finally, I've arrived. And I don't have to go through that stuff no more. But then one morning I woke up, and it was hell again. And there was a wind blowing. And I discovered the other trees I managed to save got tore up too. And the house I thought I had so well rebuilt got demolished again. I didn't even get to keep the memoirs out of it. I didn't even get to save any pictures. And there was just silence. It says in Acts 2, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. It says there came a sound of heaven. And where is the kingdom of heaven? Christ told us. It is within. And I've been looking without. When I was out fishing one time, I was 26 years old, and I heard him clear as day. I had not much to do with God at this point in my life. I was made to go to church through about the 6th grade, and after that, it was over. As soon as I had a choice, it was over. I didn't like him. I didn't like the results he brought. I did some appeasements they taught me to, but that was it. I wanted nothing to do with him. But I heard him clear as day call my name. And nobody had ever called my name because they changed my name when I was young so that it didn't reference someone else they didn't like. And no one ever called my name, Jamie. It's time to stop running. And so I immediately got up because the only place I knew he existed was this church. And I tried that one. And then I tried that one. And then I tried that one. And some of them I had a great time. I loved the music. Oh. It gave me a little heaven for a while. And then I became dependent upon the music. And so I bought all I could. I had CDs that would stack to the ceiling 3 times. I woke up in the morning, I went to sleep with it at night because I had to keep that feeling. I had to do something to keep that feeling. But then I discovered there was another way you could keep it more often. You pay for it. And so I began to plant my seeds in that heavenly garden. And I have financed a bunch of stuff. There are airplanes in the sky I put up there. There are Mercedes and Cadillacs that I have financed. And I paid. But then another dang storm came. And this storm took the life of my husband. And it was in the midst of the storm where I was sitting, he began to speak to me. The people I had begun to discover, Baxter Kruger, Francois de Toit, Bertie Britz. And so while I was there in the hospital room with my husband going through these repetitive radiation treatments, I put on my headphones. And I listened to them over and over and over, and I'm like, are they ever going to make a point? Don't they know there's supposed to be steps? I need steps. I'm a delivered addict. We had steps, okay? And in every one of the sermons, I got a bulletin when I come in, and there was points. And I had blanks to fill in and something to study when I got home. But this time after they followed him, they heard a sound in heaven from within. And as I listened and I listened, at some point, a sound started reverberating. It wasn't something I could prove to anybody. And so if I tried to tell someone else, we always knew she was a lunatic. I was the Gadarene. I was the one in chains. And I was the one who was schizophrenic, bipolar, and if that wasn't enough, I did my own self-harm. And so I thought, okay, we got to spend time with this. So then I went to my external world, and I started clearing out. I left my job. I left my church. It seemed to just cost. And the cost only just seemed to get bigger. But there was something going on inside. And I kept hearing him say, just get in the boat, Jamie. We're going to the other side. You remember the story. He'd given the parable of the sower. Later he tells them, if you can't get this parable, none of the other ones are going to make any sense either. There has to be this receiving on good soil. There has to be this soil that's prepared on the inside that you're receptive to, and you've prepared and you're willing to stop and hear. There has to be the shutting down, even if there's whatever coming to steal the seed that's been sown there. You can't do anything about it. You can't. My grandfather, when we were on a farm, he used to do all sorts of things to keep the buzzards out and the crows out and this out and that out. And it helps, but it's a lot of work. And in the end, they're still coming in. He put fences around the gardens and put electricity in them, but in the end, they're still coming in. And there come this time when in me was all these things I thought they told me, it promised. I wanted a Cadillac too. Stacy was thinking about getting his pilot's license, and I wanted to fund the plane. And I thought it was promised there. And I have children and grandchildren, and I got all these ideas about what that's supposed to look like and what they're supposed to experience in their life. And I wanted to be a part of that. And a part of that to me was to finance it. Because they couldn't. But there continued to be this reverberating sound that just, once it got started, I couldn't shut it off. And like the words she was saying this morning, there's so many times I stop and go, are you sure you're in these mushrooms? The mushrooms I had in my earlier days gave a different effect. I mean, I had 2 weeks in a cave with some trolls. It was awesome. It was the early 70s, okay? And these mushrooms ain't giving that off, okay? So I'm not sure you're in these. Are you sure good's supposed to be found here? But I kept listening to these individuals I heard about that kept saying I was included, that kept saying I was innocent. I thought, they didn't met me before. I was off the radar somehow. But then it became my reality. It was no longer words that they shared with me. Because you see, it cut in with this sound. It was the same sound. The same sound that was going on in me was going on in them, and they were just sharing the wind of the sound. As they sat there, there was a sound of heaven, but what they heard was a mighty rushing wind. And when he said, get in the boat, we're going to the other side, there was a storm that came. And in this storm, where is he at? When I'm perishing, asleep, in the hinder part of the boat. And so many times I'm back there just like them. Wake up! Don't you care that I'm perishing here? Do you not see all these things going on? But as time went on, the reverberation of this sound got more powerful than what was going on without. And as the sound got more powerful, and my reality became what I was hearing, that I am included, and that I am innocent, to the point that there's no longer a list. There's no more recognition of the winds and the storms of my past. And so I asked the Lord, how in the world do you how are you going to explain this to somebody? And he said, Jamie, it's like being in a coma. I put you here, but there was an accident. And here's what your accident looked like. And you went to sleep. And there's been all this stuff happen in this dream world. And in this dream world, you started trying to figure out how to manage things. Because you didn't put yourself to sleep. And you can't resurrect yourself out of sleep. And I began to discover that I had to let him enter my dream. Because I couldn't figure the way out. I tried everything they said. When he said, leave the church, I left. And like any good girl, I went to Bible school. And I learned about planting seeds. And I learned about working on my believometer. And I learned about the bell that's in heaven called the worshometer. Yeah, come on. And I made sure if I needed help, I gathered others so we could hang that thing and hopefully it's going to go to the top. And I did everything they said. But there was still in the end a storm. And it took down the things that I had planted. But as the sound continued to reverberate in me, things kept happening that were kind of shocking. And as this reality began to grow, this wind began to move some things that are now just a dream. And as this dream became something of the past, I'm not sure I can tell you what that nightmare was about anymore. Honestly. There's no more pain with that. There's almost no remembrance of so many of those things. But what do I do now, Lord? What do I do? Get in the boat, Jamie. We're going to the other side. Okay, I'm in the boat. But there's a storm. And the water's coming in. And there was plenty of witnesses to prove what was being seen was real. This wasn't a dream. This was reality. We're sinking. Still. And he kept saying the same thing. Get in the boat, Jamie. We're going to the other side. And then one day I heard Baxter Kruger talk about, he said, if Jesus could not get his own prayer answered, what hope have we? That's why I'm like, well, what did he pray? I mean, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And he took us to this prayer. And a portion of it says that they all may be one. As thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me, and the glory which thou gavest me I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one, I in them and thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one. And then I'm like, oh, they were gathered together in one in the upper room. And from that place of oneness, a sound began to be heard. And a mighty rushing wind began to be seen. And sometimes it looked like we're still drowning. And I'm like, I know you're telling me to get in the boat, but I don't get it. I was in resource class when I was a kid. I'm sorry. I had to go to remedial math, remedial reading. I don't get it. He said, Jamie, you're the boat. I'm in you already. I've always been there, even in your nightmare. And he just kind of played this little movie of him in my nightmare. Of all those times that should have happened, but it didn't. But by the doctor's report, I died, but I'm living. He began to show me all these times I should be without even a tree to plant, to be uprooted. But I had a tree to be uprooted. And he began to show me, and he began to say, Jamie, come within. I'm like, but I don't hear anything. He's like, I know. But it will thunder in the silence if you'll be still. Not quiet. I knew how to be quiet. I made sure I set my alarm clock until it became methodical to me. Because I read in the Bible that the ones he talked the most about got up early to talk with him. I'm telling you, I did it all. And I set my alarm clock so I could get up to make sure. And I went through a season of falling back asleep and guilt, not with great guilt and condemnation, but I had to keep in. I had to hang in there until it became innate in me. I just wake up early because I'm supposed to be with him. But he began to say, it has nothing to do with your sleeping, Jamie. I'm there. I'm just in there. And you can't hear it because it's such a quiet, still voice. And until you get still on the inside. Only then can you hear that silence can thunder. And I began to hear him speak. And what he began to speak was, just stay in the boat. We're going to the other side. Just skip the part in the middle right now, Jamie. Just stay in the boat. And as I stayed in the boat, he began to show me my own reality without the aid of Baxter. Can you imagine that? And he began to share things with me that I didn't have to question. There was no argument with me. It just brought this great peace and this great joy. And then he began to bring others to my mind, whether they be family, whether they be enemy, whether they be friend. And he said, invite them in. You're all one. When you receive it for you, you receive it for them. There's no generational curse. There's a generational blessing in the ship. In the ship. I will reverberate the sound. Well, you know what? Anytime you get it, you get to practice. But instead of this time, my eyes going, another storm, it slowly began, I get to practice. Because I can remember when I was a little bitty girl that my grandfather that raised me through much of my life until I completed the 6th grade, when I did something wrong, he never whipped me. We went outside in the garage or in the pasture with the cows, and he began to tell me the story. And by the time he got through with this story, I couldn't wait to be tempted again, to prove that I never wanted to do that again. And when I left him, I never felt condemned. I thought how great it is that I get this opportunity. And so when I began to hear this sound from within the boat, it had that same effect. My granddaughter graduated high school. And I don't know where she gets these traits from, but she's very stubborn. She's very headstrong. And she decided she knew more than her parents. So she immediately left. And she left with someone we thought she had been safe with going to church. And so now they're living together. All the whole family's in upheaval, as you can imagine. And I would go to the Lord, and he'd say, stay in the boat. I'm like, but this is serious. This is my granddaughter. Stay in the boat, Jamie. Just stay in the boat. But did you see what she just did? I mean, my daughter just called me. I just got the phone with her. Stay in the boat, Jamie. Just stay in the boat. And as I sit there in the hinder part of the boat, where I belonged, at rest, because he is in me and I'm in him. So if he's back there asleep, so am I. Because there really is no danger despite the fact the boat is filling. Because he's already told me we're going to the other side. He began to say, now speak to her spirit from your spirit from within the boat. Wake up, Lorelei. Wake up. You're whole. You're having a bad dream. And from that position in my boat, in my mind, I was literally talking to my granddaughter. Wake up. Wake up. You're in a bad dream. Wake up. Wake up. And day after day, that's all he would allow me to do. He would speak to me about how wonderful I was to him and about how wonderful he is to me. And he would bring people to mind. And that was very important to me because in a life of addiction, I had did much destruction, which included my family. And once I came out of that life, the only thing I wanted was for him to reverse the curse. The only thing I wanted was for him to undo the damage. But all he would say is, get in the boat. Just be quiet. Let's rest. Let's just rest in the boat. And as I began to do that, she came home. He said, don't stay in the boat, Jamie. Don't put your eyes back on the storm. You mean this isn't it? It doesn't matter. I've already said we're going to the other side. Stay in the boat. And then she went out again. I'm like, is anything I'm doing working? Stay in the boat, Jamie. Just stay in the boat. I'm in you. You're in me. We're seated at the table. We're one. There's lots of people here with us. It's all okay. We're going to the other side. And on the other side, Christ met. You will meet the Gadarene. I looked up the Gadarenes, and it meant the reward at the end. And the reward at the end was that which came to you. The chains were broken, and the mind was restored. And so as I stayed in the boat, with everything he brings me, he keeps giving me these rewards. And it almost doesn't seem natural. It doesn't seem right, because shouldn't I do something? Just stay in the boat, Jamie. Just stay in the boat. Just rest with me. I've already given you an example. Just rest with me. I'm like, but you went to a cross and you did all these things. And he said, well, go back and look at that then. When I died, you died. When I rose, you rose. That's the past. Live in the awareness that it's the present. Bring it into your now. And whatever looks like it can kill you, no, I've already resurrected. We've already went to the other side. I've already did that. It's done. Done. All you have to do is stay in the boat. Just stay in the boat, Jamie. In his prayer, he talks a lot about, in John 17, glorify me as I've glorified you. I've given them your glory. And in my old way of life, glory was something totally different. You know, when people walked in, they had the glory on them. And so you had throne chairs for them to sit in. And they had ushers that met them at the car to keep everybody away. And as they grew in their stature, they had additional people with speakers that talked one to another to assure that the glory on them did not get disturbed. So glory was something totally different to me. And so I began to ask, you know, what if you give me your glory, what did you really give me? And so he led me through a series of studying some little bit of Greek and Hebrew and talking to some others, and I discovered that it comes from this word that simply means to think as he thinks. I wrote down the definition. The glory of God is the revelation and manifestation of all he has and is. It is his revelation in which he manifests all the goodness that he is. And he said he gave it to me. He told his Father, I have given them the glory. He has given me all that he is and all that he has. The question is, will I rest? I can have heaven or hell. The choice is mine. It really had nothing to do with the devil. In fact, not too long ago, I was with Carlos and Grace for a week. Can I share this?
Please.
I went to stay with Carlos and Grace, and I told him to sit down at the table. I have questions. And so he began to share with me and prove to me many different things. But one of them was the great white throne judgment. I had to come to peace with some things there. That it was actually a celebration. And that Satanas, we call him Satan, is actually with the Father as a ministering angel serving me. Now, I had to swallow that one for a while, as you might. But he proved it to me. There was no argument. When Carlos proves it, it's proved. Now you have to go on and deal with your own stuff. But he proved it to me. And I'm like, what a reversal. He's serving me. And so Carlos gave me some things to go away and think about. And so I was praying one day, Lord, I don't get it. I was in remedial school. You gotta put it in my language. He said, Jamie, you've lived your life as if all your life you've been in a solar eclipse. That's where the moon gets between the earth and the sun. Only in your life, there was no moving on of it. You lived life as if you acknowledged there was a sun. You saw the glimmer of light around the edges. But you were so focused on what you couldn't see. You were always so focused on what looked like blocked the way of all the fullness of Him. You were living as if every day of your life was a solar eclipse. And then wondering why there was no life around you. And then you discovered religion. And they taught you, you have the power to command the moon to get behind you. And so then you tried to live life in a lunar eclipse with the sun and you the earth and Satanos behind you. But I'm here to tell you, Jamie, the moon has no light of its own except what I shine on it at given times for it to reflect. And even while you lay asleep while the moon is out, it brings in the tides and it brings out the tides. It in itself causes things to live. Because sometimes all we need is the light of the moon. I've had great fun in the light of the moon. It's there. Will you just accept everything as being as it should be? Whether it appears to be eclipsed for this one moment, whether it appears that it's hurricane season, will you just stay in the boat? Just stay in the boat. I'm in the hinder part. I'm in the depths of the boat. Just keep hanging out with me there. Oh, but Lord, I'm starting to see the fruits of some of these things in my life catching up with me. Just stay in the boat. And back here in the boat, we'll talk. And we'll bring them in the boat too. Spirit to spirit. And then you'll see on the outside that I'm giving you the ability to say, if you want to do something, Jamie, I'm giving you the ability to say, peace, be still. Amen. Peace means I am not indebted to you. If I have financial peace, that means I have all I need. I'm not indebted to no one. If I have relational peace between me and this man, it means that there's nothing in between he and I. And no matter what the storm looks like, and no matter how full the boat looks, he gave me the ability and the choice to say, I'm not indebted to you. It doesn't matter who got this wrong. It doesn't matter if it was you or them, or you were a victim of circumstances, or you happened upon it, or you knew it and you just did it. I'm not indebted to you. Be still. I'm going to stay in the innermost part of the boat. Thank you for letting me speak.